Hi everybody. Um, rather than planning, a video, I I'm just going live, and this will be a bit of a stream of consciousness. The video, as you can probably tell from the title, how I landed my first NHS healthcare assistant job. Yeah, so that's the topic of today's talk. First of all, a little bit of background about me. Did my A-levels, did a degree in biology. After that, I worked as a support worker for a while, which I can talk about in a later video. So that's working with adults with LD, learning difficulties. Did that for 6 months. Previous to that, I had other healthcare work experience in the hospitals, GP placement, some care home work experience. I think the support worker role was one of the things that really helped me to get the healthcare assistant job. What happened, I was living in Dorset at the time, and at the county hospital I saw there was a job being advertised for a bank healthcare worker. No experience required. So I went on to Track, which is the website you do a lot of NHS job applications through. I can talk more about that application process as well if anyone is interested. Just let me know in the comments. So that involves your qualifications, specific work experiences. You go into a fair amount of detail in those. And at the end, supporting information. So there you're talking more about how you think you fulfill the job description and the person's specification, and some more just supporting information about yourself without talking about your previous job descriptions again in too much detail. The supporting information was the biggest piece of writing. Yeah, after that, there's a period of waiting, and I was invited to interview. That was on Zoom. By the way, this was all early 2021. I did this. But I was invited to interview. I think I was just interviewed by one person. But now, getting on to what I really wanted to talk about in the video was the interview questions and how I answered those. I wrote them down afterwards. I think the interview took about half an hour. So, first of all, the lady asked me to tell her a little about myself. I think this is just a warm up question to get the blood pumping. Tell me about yourself. Can't really go too wrong in that. The second question was, what do you understand about the role of a HCA? That's quite important. You have to know what the job description entails. I think you also it's useful to know someone who's a HCA. I think you can look at a job description and work out a good amount. But also, a lot of the day-to-day of a HCA is supporting the nurses on the ward. You have to have a fairly good understanding of what the nature of the nurse's job in an acute setting. Morning until night, and obviously the job continues at night time. So in the mornings, waking people up, supporting the nurses when they come to do their drug rounds. Before that is probably waking, toileting, helping those who need it to get cleaned. People who are a bit more independent, giving them the supplies and showing them where to go. You have to physically clean people, especially in things like trauma wards where there are broken limbs which they can't use, or if they can't stand up. Helping people to go to the toilet. So this is especially, like I said, in trauma wards, trauma and surgical. Someone's got a broken hip, you need to help them. Elderly care, big one. Stroke, big one. Observations throughout the day. So you'd go around with your trolley and all of their vital signs, the temperature, their blood pressure, their oxygen sats, the heart rate, their respiration rate, blood sugar maybe. Throughout the day, you might need to help people to turn. If they're in bed for a long period of the day, you don't need to get bed sores. There are turning rotors. Helping with meal times, preparing food, cleaning people's bed spaces and their tables before eating, helping make hot drinks, probably more toileting after lunch. Yeah, that's a fairly basic idea of some of the things, some of the things you might get up to on a daily basis. Anyway, I do want to try and keep this as succinct as possible. So that's what you understand about the role of a HCA, supporting nurses in the day-to-day activities. That can also include notes if you're, especially if you're a band 3 HCA. I was bank, so I moved around a lot. If you're a permanent HCA, I think I do get a bit more involved in note taking. The next question: what qualities do you think you could bring to the role? Having a knowledge of the 6 C's is really important. If you don't know what they are, it's good to know, and also where they came from. After the Mid-Staffs incident, there was an inquiry. Lord Cavendish, or no, Camilla Cavendish, I think, was the person who made the care certificate, which was a common piece of a common qualification that all support workers could do to standardise care across the UK. And it was built around the 6 C's: care, compassion, competence, communication, courage, and commitment. Be very smart to try and mention a few of those. not specifically, but to show an understanding, because they're all things that nurses and healthcare assistants need. Being able to be calm, courage to be honest about mistakes and what he's doing, commitment to doing a good job. You need to have good communication skills. You need to be compassionate. You need to be competent. And these things all link back to care, and providing good patient care and patient safety at the end of the day is very important. That would probably answer what qualities could you bring to the role. You could also talk about personal qualities and your own experiences, and maybe looking after people or having personal. What if you were asked to do something against procedure by a nurse? There's another thing I was asked. You'd probably say no, respectfully say, I think that's against procedure, so I'm not going to do it. And also probably reporting that to your senior as well, that you were asked to do something against procedure. Yeah, say no and report it. How would you support a nursing team? Was another question I was asked. You could link that back to the 6Cs. How could you support the nurses? You could have a good idea about your job description. You would know what your scope of practice is and the kind of things which you're not trained for, so you wouldn't do. Therefore, you escalate or you ask for help. Being a team player in nursing is big. Being able to ask if you can help in any way. Also, having a certain level of independence and showing initiative and getting on with the job without needing constant direction. Being useful to the nursing team, but also being able to work independently and being competent at your job. Tell us about the 6Cs and how they apply to care. Coming into an interview, you need to have done your research around the 6Cs. When I was invited to interview, I was sent an information booklet which talked about the NHS Trust I was applying to work with, and it also included 6Cs and a bit of a story behind the care certificate. So whenever you start work, I know healthcare assistants do the care certificate. I knew a trainee psychotherapist in a trust that did the care certificate. Nurses, I'm afraid I actually don't know whether they do one or not, but it's not just healthcare assistants that do it, in my experience. So that's tell us about the 6Cs and how they apply to care. If it was a Zoom meeting, you could have a few notes. Otherwise, just try and remember as many as you can. Know how to talk about them. Next question was, how would you respond to an angry or aggressive patient or relative? I think this is probably wanting you to think a little bit about personal safety, responsibility over your own safety and the safety of others. So it'd be demonstrating open and relaxed and calm body language, talking slowly, exhibiting empathy and compassion and understanding of their situation, making a dynamic assessment of the environment and seeing if there's anything that could be considered dangerous. Are there any scissors on the bedside table if someone is not very happy about something? And calling for backup safely, but still effectively, and trying not to escalate the situation further is really important. So safety, de-escalation, or at least don't escalate further, and call for support. Make sure somebody knows what's happening. What do you understand about confidentiality was the next question. It's a big one. It's a big one. Can talk about why confidentiality is important. There are laws around it, and like data protection acts. So it's law. Also, patient confidentiality. If they don't feel safe in providing information about themselves, which could be considered delicate, then that's going to impact their healthcare. Patients need to be confident that information about them is going to be handled with respect. It's going to remain private. There's also things you can share that don't directly identify a patient, for training purposes or teaching, for example. I feel like there's something else I was going to say about confidentiality. This wasn't it, but you could talk about the Caldecott principles. It's a good one to research. Caldicott. 7 Caldecott principles. So, things like access to information should be on a strict need-to-know basis. Every use of confidential information must be lawful. So they're a good thing to have an understanding of. What hours are you expecting as bank shift? In my information pack, when I interviewed, they say they'd like an average of 3 to 4 shifts a week, a minimum of 1. Well, I can't remember if I think I said I'd expect to be looking for an average of 3 to 4 shifts a week. But honestly, once I got the job and I had the app, there are shifts all the time. Certain wards may be a bit more difficult to get onto, depending on staffing levels. Yeah, I'm really happy that I started off with a bank contract. Did the interview, and a short time later, I can't remember, it's been within a week, I was offered to start. I was, give an unconditional offer. And I think from there, it still took a few months, like maybe 3 months, before paperwork and bureaucratic stuff to get finished. My DBS check and references took a little while. But yeah, that was that journey. Since then, I started a new job, which I might upload a video about. So that is, I'm now in London working as a mental health support worker for an eating disorder service. And depending on the reaction I get to this video, I might talk about that one too. And maybe some other things in the future. Guys, I hope it was useful. I hope it wasn't too long. Like I said, it's kind of a unstructured stream of consciousness kind of thing. Feel free to ask any questions, in the comments. Watch the space. Cheers.